I think, I could be wrong, I think this will be the first Labic-less episode in, what, close to 170? I don't know what we're up to right now.
We're in the 160s. I'm not
sure.
So
we're getting,
I don't think
getting
we
close
cracked
to the
170
1-somethings. Okay, so this would be, I just looked real quick, this would be 163.
163.
So it took 163 episodes of this, plus, say, around a dozen of the former Nerdologist podcast.
Yeah.
So close to 175, call it 175, to get a Labic-less episode.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Bry Guy and His Super Friends. I am your usual host, Brian Labick, and your actual hosts for this episode are Mike Bradley.
Hey.
And Josh Zorich.
I think you can call me Count Movie Slut this time.
No one but us will appreciate the editing magic that just took place in this intro. So this episode is a little bit of a change of pace, mainly for me. Josh and I had talked. He suggested doing a horror movie preview show. The night he was trying to do that, I was unable to record. And the more we talked about it, since this is being labeled as a preview episode, it would have been better to have this out before a lot of the movies that they're going to talk about are released, just to give you a sense of what's coming. We also agreed that the horror genre is not really in my wheelhouse, so I didn't have to be here for this. We've done some episodes in the past where the other guys have ran with a topic, which I don't have a lot to contribute to. I just kind of sit there and keep quiet. This is the first time they're doing the whole show without me. So if the episode sucks, be sure to blame Mike and Josh. No, I'm kidding. Don't do that. But seriously, if you enjoy the episode, they did a great job. I kind of feel like the parent leaving the kids at home for the first time and then finally coming home and realizing that they're still alive and didn't set the house on fire. So it's a proud parent moment for me. If you enjoy the episode, make sure to give these guys some love. They'll appreciate it. Again, they did awesome. A side note, mainly directed at Josh because I know he'll listen to this after the fact and doesn't know what I'm editing. Listeners, you guys will get this eventually throughout the episode. Josh, I have 2 words for you. Challenge accepted. I'll leave it at that. But as I tend to do when left to my own to record some sort of intro by myself, I'm rambling. I feel like I've talked too long. Granted, this one I think is on the shorter end of intros that I've done in the past, but still, I'm just extending it the more I talk. You're not here to listen to me. You're here to listen to them. So without further ado, I will pass it on now to Josh and Mike. Enjoy.
All right, Brian. Thanks. Mike, we're here on our own. Does this feel weird to you?
I mean, there's first time for everything.
I mean, maybe it's apropos to what we'll be discussing. Do you think it's going to be sort of like the inmates running the asylum?
I was thinking more like Brian just kind of said, "Oh, I'll be right back," and
that's
on
perfect.
His own way, and now we have to worry about what he's doing tonight.
Whether he's ever going to rejoin us or not, or if we're going to find him in a tragic state.
Sadly, if you're hearing this, you know that he did rejoin us because he edits all of this shit. So.
This is going to be a lot of fun. As Mike and I were talking just before we got started, this is we believe we could be maybe wrong, but we believe this is going to be the first Labic-less episode in the entire Bry Guy run.
Bry Guy and his Super Friends without Bry Guy. It's weird.
Yeah, I will continue to call it Labic-less instead of Brian-less as well. That is all I will call it.
This is a Super Friends podcast.
Yes. So the reason that it is Labic-less is because Mike and I guess out of the group mainly are the biggest horror fans, I think, that typically contribute on stuff like that. And honestly, Brian was busy, and with the everything into consideration, I think it was just decided that while he would probably hand off to us for the entire episode anyway, we're just going to try to steer the ship ourselves. So if you listened to last week's episode, you heard us end... What am I saying? Of course you listened to last week's episode. you heard us end by the mention that Zombieland Double Tap, the sequel coming out this year, released a trailer, surprisingly the first trailer for that movie, only, less than 3 months ahead of its release.
Its audience didn't need more. We
No, it did.
People
They just
going
needed
to see that. Just show me a title. I'm there.
Yeah, exactly. I was just saying, as soon as they announce the project, give me a release date. I don't need a poster. Give me a release date and tell me those 4 people are coming back.
Well,
That's
yeah,
all
I mean,
needed.
yeah, so long as it wasn't like changing everything about it and just a, McSequel to it, it was going to be fine.
Right. I could have never seen one preview or image, and I was still going to be there opening weekend. But they released this trailer just a couple days after Comic-Con to kind of let that news cycle die down a bit, and then they got that out there. So that led into us realizing that there is, you judge, listener, whether you think it's going to be good or bad, but there's quite a fruitful Halloween scary movie season coming that starts very soon, and that's the other reason that we think we wanted to get this episode out sooner rather than later, because our first topic is actually going to be about a movie that's coming out the Friday of this week. You're hearing this on probably Monday, and this coming out Friday, August 9th. So we didn't want to delay, and we wanted everyone to have their fall, scary movie season in front of them and ready. Something that I forgot to bring up, though, and did you hear about this, that at Comic-Con, the studio that does the Halloween, they announced 2 more sequels?
I'm not surprised at all by that. Just
I'm
like
not either.
Every Halloween movie ever, the movie ends with us not seeing Michael dead.
Yeah.
That's never happened before. We don't actually see, any kind of real confirmation. Oh, let's lock him in a burning house. That'll work.
Right.
I mean,
and
cutting his head off with an axe didn't work. Why is... like,
well, Mike, to be fair...
It wasn't him.
Spoilers for a 20-year-old movie, but they retconned it afterwards so that they could make Halloween Resurrection.
Well, and that's the whole point, is that if they gave, some unmasked version of Michael being killed by somebody who was actually aware of who he was, then yes, they would have a significant outcome that they wanted. But they didn't do that. They didn't do that for a very clear reason. And that reason was sequels and money.
Yeah. So what they confirmed there is that there will be 2 sequels following in October of 2020 and October of 2021 that will follow in the continuity of the 2018 reboot. 2020 will be called Halloween Kills, which will be followed the following year, obviously, by Halloween Ends. And just like we just discussed with
Unless
Halloween
it makes enough money that they don't want to end it.
Right, that's like the worry, isn't it? Because Halloween H2O seemed like it ended in such a great place that they never needed to keep going, but they decided to.
I mean, it's just the same trope over and over again. I mean, Friday the 13th, Part 4, the final chapter.
Very good point.
Part 9, Jason goes to hell.
Yeah.
It just over and over and over. It's the same thing. It's...
Yeah, true, though. I will
Wasn't one of the Nightmare on
that.
Elm Streets called Freddy's Dead? It's...
The final the final nightmare. There was... Yeah, but you know what? With Jason specifically, if they didn't do that, then I never get Jason Takes Manhattan, which is just a movie that I am glad the world has.
I'll go Jason X is the one that I'm glad is still out
the
there.
Most. I agree. I think Jason Takes Manhattan might have been it for me the peak of the absurdity of that franchise, personally. But
Jason X didn't get more absurd for you?
It did, but it knew what it was. I think Jason Takes Manhattan, either people didn't know what ironic movie making was in the genre at the time.
Okay.
So it wasn't received that way, I don't think.
Yeah, I mean, when he does the same exact thing you can see in Killer Clowns from Outer Space to somebody in the movie, when he just, uppercuts somebody's head right off their body. Also happens in Killer Clowns from Outer Space, which knew exactly what it was.
Yeah, precisely. There's some that are very self-aware.
Of all things that we don't get a sequel to, I want more clowns wrapping people up in cotton candy and drinking their insides out with a fucking curly straw. Like, why not?
I mean, come on. Why can I not have it? Sounded very Dr. Evilish there. Why can't I just have more clowns with curly straws?
Well, I mean, when it comes right down to it, it is that ridiculous, but that's,
This is true.
Kind of the point.
Yes. I mean, it's no surprise, as you said, the Halloween reboot, which completely eliminated all continuity from Halloween 2 through Halloween Resurrection and acted as a direct sequel to the original Halloween from 1978.
It eliminated the reboots as well. The other reboot.
Yeah, that's true, and we'll talk about that later because that creator is has a film on our list. So the 2018 reboot was made on a budget of $10 million, and it opened to $76 million and ended up with a worldwide gross of over $250 million. So, I mean, the return on investment, that was huge. So yeah, financial reasons, this doesn't surprise me. I'm at least happy that it's confirmed that both Jamie Lee Curtis and Judy Greer, along with the actress who plays Judy Greer's daughter and Jamie Lee Curtis's granddaughter, her name's escaping me. Her character name's escaping me. But the actress is Andy, I'm going to do my best, Andy Matichak. All three of them are slated to keep going in the series, which is nice that they're trying to keep a continuity going, at least. And again, it's not like, let's just take Laurie and throw her in any random situation with brand new people.
Well, I mean, that was their plan for a while. But, I mean, well, it started out actually with Donald Pleasance, where they were just going to throw him in there with random people. And
which is basically where it went.
Curtis.
Yeah. Yeah, that whole middle stride from like 4 through 6 in the original run, that's exactly what they did.
Yeah, 3 was just off the fucking wall. That was just a whole nother ballgame.
Right, yeah. So yeah, Season of the Witch always exists off to the side.
Yeah, but I feel like I'm hoping a lot of horror movie makers and a lot of people that do these repetitive sequels are starting to take note of things like what the MCU has done, and they're writing out and storyboarding these stories from the start with the intention of doing all 3. And then when it is a financial success, they do it. And if it's a flop and it doesn't make any money, well, they don't obviously get the green light to do more. But I'm hoping they tie these things together properly as one full story.
Right.
As opposed to 3 separate entries.
Yeah, this is a good point. And not to, blow the MCU again like we always do, but I think those particular creators have been good at achieving that, but at the same time, if it's almost like, with the exception of very few, take away post-credit scenes, take away mid-credit scenes, which are meant to do that exact thing, to carry it on for you, give you a taste of what's next, perhaps. But they craft each story as though if this was the end, this is the end.
Yeah.
The story itself in that one particular chapter isn't like such a cliffhanger that it's obviously, we made this as a 2-part thing and now you have to go. Obviously, Infinity War and Endgame are an exception to that, but yeah, I agree. If they could do that with certain horror franchises, I think it could definitely benefit the genre entirely, especially because like Chris Rock is overtaking and overseeing a reboot of the Saw franchise with Samuel L. Jackson.
I had not heard about that. That
was a few months ago.
Too soon. It doesn't need rebooted. It's not old enough yet.
So I'm of mixed feelings on that because I only feel that way because it feels like they just tried to do that with that Jigsaw movie in 2017.
Fair enough.
And if that didn't exist, then I would say, okay, let's try something fresh, maybe, someone like Chris Rock, very different, sort of like a Jordan Peele, comedy background coming in to take over and try his hand at this. Let's see what it looks like. But because they just tried that Jigsaw sequel, prequel, weird entry thing that they did, so many years after Saw 7 was over, I agree. I'm like, well, I to be fair, I don't know how quickly they're getting it off the ground. I don't know if it's going to be like next year or if it's going to be another 2 or 3 or 4 years, but
it's still, it's just, yeah, one, other than the first Saw, you can have all of them.
Sure.
I don't want them to make any more Saw movies. Like, just leave the first one as the fantastic film it was and erase the other ones from my memory.
Yeah, I hear you. Well, before we get too bogged down in that, let's jump into the itinerary, shall we?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. So if all went well, listeners, you should be listening to us on, say, August the 5th, August the 6th, because we know as soon as a new episode is up, I mean, we know that all of you download it and consume it immediately, so there's no delay in you receiving this. So if that is the case, because that is the case, then this Friday, August the 9th, the first on the calendar will hit, which is a screen adaptation of a book that I think a lot of people read when, like, of our generation, when they were growing up. This was like an elementary school, middle school staple for a lot of people. It's an adaptation of Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark. Now, Mike, it sounds like from our pre-discussion that you are familiar with these. It's funny. This is actually a book I've never read. Well, any of them.
I have not actually read it myself. Amy is the one who's very familiar with it.
Oh, okay.
She was very into it, so I have heard a lot about it. That having said that, she basically said, like, it's not really something that kids should really read, maybe teenagers, because they're fairly disturbing stories, weird, scary stories, things that, like, a child would really not do well with.
All right.
Which from the preview I've seen falls pretty well in line with what the preview looked like.
Yeah.
Like, not something like the Goosebumps stories that we've seen turned into film.
Good comparison.
Clearly made for kids. This
Yeah.
is clearly made for adults who remember this from their childhood.
Well, that's where I'm wondering how it's going to fall down, because it's still rated PG-13. So it might take it to the limits of disturbing imagery and, maybe a little language here and there of what they can get away with. But yeah, I'm not sure how far it's going to go. Guillermo del Toro is listed as one of the 3 screenwriters for this project. I did a little bit of history digging on this, that the original author, Alvin Schwartz, he released 3 volumes of short stories. Volume 1 in 1981, Volume 2 in 84, and then the last volume in 1991. So that is making me wonder, is this going to be sort of like Trick or Treat? Is going to be like VHS, or this is going to be like a series of vignettes, or is there going to be some kind of through narrative that connects them all, even if that is the case? Because the publishing content was just this like series of short stories.
I mean, the trailer made it seem like a cohesive story, but that doesn't mean that they're not going to use several parts from many of the stories told and turn them into one.
Okay, yeah.
Who knows, really? I'm not familiar enough with the source content to know how that could be done with the source. But, it definitely in the trailer looked like a single story.
Okay, that's how it hit you. Yeah, even after watching it again, I wasn't... But then, like, reading more about how the original source material is structured, I didn't know if I was trying to trick myself into thinking, oh, that's just the way they cut the trailer. I'm sure this is going to be the actual format of the film. We've made passing comments many times about how it's difficult to do good scary movies at a PG-13 rating. Based on the preview that you watched, and some of the like imagery that it's offering so far, do you potentially plan on seeing this either in theaters, or once it is out on digital or DVD, would you pick it up? Is it anything that you think would like have the potential to be good?
It looks like it has potential. I will be there probably next Friday when this comes out.
Okay.
Amy, as soon as she started seeing advertising for it, was very excited for it. So,
good.
I will be there with her for that. And if she enjoys it, I enjoy it. All is well and good. If not, I see enough movies in the theater per year that some are good, some are bad, and
yeah,
we're talking about horror movies and things like that. Horror movies are so hit and miss.
I agree.
You never know what's gonna come of it.
And I think, I was thinking that exact thought just as you were saying it, to the extent that I feel like if a horror movie is a miss, it's a hard miss.
Oh yeah,
right, in the way, like, if there's an action movie that is still not that good, there's elements of the filmmaking in general, because of the genre, that you're still like, oh, that was a fun stunt they did, or a good visual effect, or a big blow up moment, or a thing.
Kind of how Fast and the Furious is watchable, even though they're god awful stories, because where else are you going to see cars drive 80 stories up and fly out of one building and into another building and keep driving? It's completely unrealistic, but it's the only place you're going to get that. I will take your word that
is a thing that happens in those films. Yeah, I mean, like, exactly along those kind of lines. And I think with scary movies, with horror, because they, as much as people who aren't fans of the genre don't want to recognize, or that they just don't happen to recognize, is maybe the kinder way to say it, they, in my opinion, are very much built on story. That is how they live or die, no pun intended. That is how they separate between the good and the shitty.
Sometimes, and I would argue sometimes it's also performances that can help pull things up. I mean, my example from this year is going into two separate horror movies that came out fairly close together this year. Brightburn and Child's Play.
Yes, okay.
I went into Brightburn with very high thoughts of what I was getting into, thinking this was going to be fantastic, came out fairly disappointed. Okay. I went into Child's Play completely expecting this to be absolute shit, because it's a Child's Play remake.
Right. And again, I think this has that. It
was the opposite.
We didn't get around to seeing that one. And I'm glad to hear that. We didn't get around to seeing that one because I was the exact, like, Saw problem we were just talking about. I'm like, they just made another, like, straight to home video Chucky chapter last year.
This is
what, like, why were they doing another theatrical reboot? Like, I didn't understand.
Well, this isn't a complete reboot. By the way, I will say that, like,
okay,
this is not, like, Brad Dourif's gone.
Right.
That angle of Chucky is gone. The angle they played with that angle of Chucky is gone. This version of Chucky is trying to make Andy happy. And
okay.
It
yeah, don't say too much, because we're definitely gonna get this eventually.
And Mark Hamill fucking kills it.
Yeah. Is it a unique performance? Like there, I'm hoping, like, I don't turn it on and all of a sudden I'm like, oh, that's the Joker.
There's a little bit of that, but it's, I'd say, like, you get, what if he was doing the Joker as a child, maybe? Like, he makes it,
okay.
It sounds like there's a squeak in the voice. It sounds like a little kid, but has the same kind of tone, I guess, as the Joker. But nonetheless, the point I was getting at was, like, there's two great examples of, I was disappointed by a movie in a horror movie that I thought was going to be fantastic going in, because I loved the idea of it and all that, and then the execution was very poor.
Sure.
And then the opposite with Child's Play, where I went in expecting a dumpster fire, but it's one of those things where I just can't look away, so I had to go see it. And I went in and I was actually like, well, holy shit, this was not at all what I expected. And it makes sense as to how they got Mark Hamill and Aubrey Plaza to sign on to do this.
Mm-hmm.
Also, as far as I know, that's the first movie to come out from LeBron James movie studio.
I did not know that was a thing to begin with, so okay.
There's actually quite a few upcoming movies. I don't know, I'm sure you've seen the previews for the movie with Melissa McCarthy, where she's...
The Kitchen?
Yeah, that's...
Okay, yeah.
That's LeBron's movie
graphic
studio.
Novel, I think.
Yeah, his movie studio is making that.
Well, I'll be damned.
That's the one off the top of my head, but there's a bunch of others he's went out, and it kind of started with Child's Play, because he was a fan and he kind of wanted to reboot it, and he just kind of said, okay, well, I have the money, so let's do it. and he does have the money, so...
Yeah, I will reserve judgment then until I, get a chance to see it, and then some of the other stuff that they're putting out to see what the quality is. So, all right, all the best of luck to him.
Yeah, I mean, he's just funding it. It's not like he's producing or anything. Like,
still.
Yeah, I'm just, he's just the money. Anyways, sorry.
Yeah, I guess quickly circling back around to Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark, out August 9th. I guess that's all the background I had. I think it definitely is up my alley. Like I said, I never got around to reading any of the books growing up, but I'm ready for Halloween season already. Like, I don't want summer to end, but I'm ready for scary movie season. So if this is what's coming first, I'm ready and willing.
Summer can end and never come back for all I care. I could live in Alaska and it wouldn't bother me. But as far as fall goes, yes, fall is the best season of the year. Scary movies, pumpkin flavored things, all these wonderful, wonderful holidays we get, and lots of eating and stuffing our faces, and it's wonderful. So, and the temperature outside is great. And you happen to live in Western Pennsylvania, and it looks particularly like Haddonfield, maybe, with all the leaves turning and all the trees everywhere. It's not, but it looks a little like it.
Mike, we've reached our buzzer for this topic. Uh-oh.
Well, time to move on.
Like a good scary movie, you didn't know that was coming. Mike and I are implementing a timer buzzer system just like we did on the episode last week, and that was the call that it's time to move on.
Indeed.
So this is, I'm curious to hear your thoughts on this. So a week later, on August 16th, we get a sequel to the 2017 movie 47 Meters Down. This one titled, very cleverly, 47 Meters Down, Uncaged. This was just before, so this came out in the summer, a couple months before Sarah and I started working at the movie theater, and all of our coworkers would say, you wouldn't believe how long we had that movie, like in relation to how, long a theatrical run typically goes. And for a movie about people trapped in a shark cage underwater, they said people just kept coming. Like, it wasn't in droves, but a steady trickle just kept coming every week. And it stayed a while. And I guess it kind of makes sense. I mean, domestically, the movie only made $44 million. I don't know what the budget was, and I couldn't find any international box office numbers, but I guess they thought it was enough to do, a full theatrical run sequel, but not like a straight to video or anything. Did you see the first one? I did not.
Yeah, I've seen it.
What do you think?
It was awful.
Okay. In any kind of redeeming way, or?
They had, this novel idea built around, I don't know exactly what the fuck they were thinking.
Okay.
Most of the dialogue isn't even dialogue because they're underwater.
Makes sense. Okay.
And then they had, if I recall properly, there was something like a air bubble somewhere they had down there, or something where they could get in and actually speak for a bit. Something along those lines. Something ridiculous like that.
Yeah, because so far I'm picturing Aquaman in Justice League type of scenario. So I'm hoping it's better than that.
It was just... So here's the thing. They can frame it however they want. They can do whatever they want. What they put together there was preposterous. And the entire time I'm watching it, I'm like, one, your shark looks real when it's far away and looks really dumb when it's close up.
Okay.
Two, this, it gave you a headache to watch, because it was just like, you didn't need to make this movie. This was a scene that could have been good in a movie that they turned into an entire movie.
Because I see. This could have been like Act 2 of something.
But it could have been like, we had the shark cage scene in Jaws. I've seen this already. You know, like,
yeah.
The distance you are down in the water doesn't matter. And I don't know, I have no idea why the hell they would do a sequel or how.
Well, I couldn't answer how necessarily because I haven't seen the first one yet. But as far as I can tell, like, so Mandy Moore and Matthew Modine appeared in the first one. Neither of them or the other character who Mandy Moore is trapped with all throughout the first movie, none of them are in the sequel. So I don't know.
I can't remember 100% sure, but I'm pretty sure both her and the other girl that were down there die.
Okay, so that would explain why. So yeah, so in terms of like taking the story further, I wouldn't have any guesses. I can tell like it's the same writer and director team. The director is one of the two co-writers who have come back to do this, but again, like apparently no returning characters or actors. Let me ask, so when you saw the first one, was it in a theater? Was it VOD?
No,
was it Netflix? Was it?
Yeah, it was when it was free.
Okay.
Yeah, when it was Netflix or Amazon. I can't remember which one had it.
Sure.
At the time that I watched it, but yeah.
So I'm going to take a shot in the dark. You probably have very little to no interest or motivation to catch this one during its theatrical run, at least.
Yeah, in theaters, no, not at all. When it comes to, on demand of some sort, when it's free on something, well, not free, but on something I already pay for.
Sure.
Yeah, morbid curiosity will get me to turn it on and see if I can get through the whole thing.
Okay. Well, I'm probably not in the bag for this, obviously, because I haven't seen the first one yet, and I'm a weird purist in that way that regardless of how disconnected, quote, sequels can be from each other, I really never see them out of order ever for the first time. So I will probably not make it around, but I guess I would say, unless you have anything else to add on this afterward, I would close this one out by saying if you have seen the first one and enjoyed it, God bless you. And the sequel will be available to you on August 16th. So good luck with that. So moving on, I suppose. So number 3 is something that I'm really curious about. It's a movie called Ready or Not, and it releases on August the 23rd. It looks like it's going to be at least moderately available in a theatrical run. Not sure how wide of a release it'll be, but did you get a chance to watch the trailer for this?
No, I have not seen a trailer for Ready or Not yet. I wasn't aware there was one.
It's the only way that I actually found out about it. I forget what we saw it on. What we saw it in front of, or even Sarah came across it, I think, somewhere. So all I know so far is I actually got really excited at first because I'm like, oh, one of the co-writers is Ryan Murphy, from like the American Horror Story series and a lot of like the true crime stuff. Like he's very prolific. And then I, click on him and it's like Ryan Murphy, or like on IMDb, Ryan Murphy, and in parentheses, it's like 7, which means he is definitely not that Ryan Murphy.
Okay. Ryan Murphy?
Different Ryan Murphy altogether.
Sure.
Not necessarily a bad thing, but it was just like a realignment of expectations. I did go through his limited credits as well as the other writer and the directors. Nothing stood out to me of really, really high profile notable work. There's I think there are co-directors on this. They also co-directed one of the vignette segments on the first VHS movie, if you've seen any of those.
Oh, I've seen the VHS movies. Do we know which vignette it was?
I can find out for you as we're going, yeah.
My excitement would vary because some of them were very good and some of them were very bad.
True, although I mean, off the top of my head, even if you told me that, like, which segment it was, I don't remember those movies well enough to remember what specific segments were which.
I've watched the first one at least twice.
Okay. I remember liking what I watched. I don't think I ever watched the third one yet.
It's if you have spare time that you're going to waste and you're very aware that you're going to be wasting it.
I think it is. Well, it looks like the first VHS movie is really only split into
like three,
maybe four. Oh well, no. Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Actually, 6. Okay. There's just a lot of. There's like 5 directors on this one segment that those 2 guys are a part of. It was the Halloween 1998 vignette segment. So that's like by name, that's the only one I recognized. But the trailer looks both this like combination of I guess I'd call it like horror comedy, but also with like interesting camera movement choices that are reminiscent of like Wes Anderson or Tarantino. So it almost kind of like the way the trailer is cut, but I don't think it's categorized, at least on IMDb, as a comedy in any way. I think it's just called like a horror thriller. Yeah, horror mystery thriller. But like I said, at least the way the trailer is presented kind of has this vibe about it. The basic premise is on well, let me also pull back. It takes place, I'm going to say like late 1800s in like a well-to-do, it looks like a Southern Belle well-to-do type of like mansion home. And it's the wedding night that a son from the family is marrying a woman, but the family is planning on killing her that night because it apparently looks like they're part of a cult or something.
I did see this trailer.
So I think it looks fun as hell. And then at least the way that the trailer makes it look is that the son knows about it, but he's not planning on going through with it. So he is like, his plan is to try to protect her all night. And so I think it's going to be like, most of the movie is going to be like one of those, like, you know, all through one night. That's the whole movie.
Yeah.
Samara Weaving is like the main actress, who I know doesn't have a lot of name recognition. I know she was in a movie called The Babysitter.
Something for... Yes, The Babysitter was awesome. She is awesome. I think she's great. She's also nice to look at if, you know, guys out there, you're into that sort of thing.
If nothing else.
But she is also actually Hugo Weaving's niece.
Oh, okay. Well, that's an interesting tidbit.
So,
yeah, that makes sense.
Pretty sure that's how she got her start, was, you know, him probably giving her a boost.
Maybe, yeah. And like, she has a bunch of like TV series credits and small part credits. She was in, I think she had a small part in 3 Billboards Outside Ebbing, Missouri. Interestingly, I believe, I'm taking a leap here, but she's playing a character called Thea Preston in Bill and Ted Face the Music, which I'm taking to be Bill's daughter.
Yeah, that would probably be a good guess.
Mm-hmm. If anyone was a fan of the Ash vs. Evil Dead series on Starz, she had a 3-episode arc on that show. But I mean, honestly, as an actress, I think she's pleasant. I think she is pretty natural. She seems good at her job. There's also, I mean, there's not a whole bunch of other big names necessarily in this movie, aside from Adam Brody and Andy McDowell.
Yeah, which
like people of note. But like I said, overall, you know, for like, if you're listening, like, look up Ready or Not that comes out August 23rd. It just looks fun. It looks strange, but it looks fun. And I don't know if it's supposed to, but that's how it looks to me.
Well, I mean, you know, it's a game of hide and seek with knives and guns and
I think like the period aspect to it, the period piece aspect to it, is going to lend to how, like, what they can play with, the setting, the house, the costumes, as opposed to it just seem like, if it was in modern day, I don't think it would look as interesting whatsoever.
No, I agree. That it definitely has potential. Now that I remember having seen the trailer, I'm like, yes, it's there. So
yeah, I think that's when we're definitely going to try to make it out to. So yeah, I just kind of gush about that one because it makes me smile. But anything else on your mind for Ready or Not?
Nothing particularly.
Gravy. All right. Well, we didn't hit the timer on that one, so we are moving on. I think this is going to be one of the big ones, because right after Labor Day, first Friday of September, the sequel to the massive success box office, and for the most part, I'd say critically, probably, the follow-up to It, or really the conclusion, if you will, to It, Chapter 2, comes to theaters. Mike, you are much more of the... I'm going to make myself sound like a freaking idiot here. You're much more of the reader than I am.
Oh, okay.
And you've talked a lot, too, about, I think, you've read the Stephen King book, correct?
Yes.
Okay, and I think you've mentioned that before. And I think at different points it's come up here and just personally, talking about the first installment 2 years ago. What re-summarize for us so we know where we're starting from. What were your feelings about I don't even want to call it like a reboot or remake, but there was the miniseries in like 1990 or something.
Yeah, it's just a movie. It's the It movie because it wasn't ever a movie before.
Correct.
So you can safely just stick with that, I think.
Sure. So how did you feel about that?
I loved it. It stayed mostly, it's hard to say mostly true, but again, the book and both the miniseries before it did do a bit of jumping back and forth between present day and the past. So it still, again, they chose to go a different route for these two movies where they're going to play one movie in the past and one movie in the present. Mm-hmm. Which I'm perfectly fine with that. It worked out very well for the first movie. Mm-hmm. The thing for me is that I look at that movie more like Stranger Things and those two movies I kind of put together because focusing a lot on their childhood, I find it to be more of an adventure the first time around for them. It's a disturbing adult adventure.
Sure.
That, not like Stranger Things, which is more kid-friendly and teen-friendly, and this is not.
Right. Oh, yeah. But in some similar of the same vein.
Right. Same vein, just one tagging that R rating on it and earning it, and the other not.
Big time.
So I look at it in that same type of thing for the first one, and this second one might actually be more disturbing.
Okay.
And again, it all plays into, I feel like they're going to stay true to the book, but there are certain things even in the book that Stephen King's fucked up mind came up with that we will not see on film. Yeah, it's like, it's one of those things that gets talked about because it's one of the most poignant and like strong development moments for several of the characters. Mm-hmm. But it's also the most distasteful thing I think that you could imagine having to see, and I hope we don't end up seeing that in a flashback here in any way or anything, because we do know that the kids are in this movie as well. They're acting.
Okay.
Are
you
they're
referring
credited
to an event that they omitted from the first film?
Well, they omitted, but maybe they refer back to it, or
right.
Something comes up. I don't know.
Yeah,
I'm just hoping it doesn't crop back in because it doesn't need to be there.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think that's, if you're not sure what we're talking about for the moment, you're probably better off.
Just Google it and
Google
find
it and
out for
ask
yourself.
who,
we're not going to talk about what it is. Because Brian would not even air the episode if we did anyway.
Probably not. It's tough to talk about.
I'm surprised they printed it in the first place back in the day.
True.
But it looks to have a more disturbing tone this time. Like the first time around, it was there was disturbing moments, but I mean, I guess if you're somebody who's frightened by clowns, those people are out there. They exist. Clowns disturb some people, not me personally.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it works against you, but it does have its moments. And Stephen King was always very good at playing into different fears and phobias in many different ways in his novels. Sure, this has, the first one had clowns, but it also deals with illness, sickness, viruses, things like that. Deals with just so many things that get dealt with in terms of what people are generally afraid of in it, which is why it's such a classic story, and I'm hoping, given the people they've chose to be a part of this cast, I am very confident that going forward we have another hit on our hands here. We have another home run.
Yeah. That's a good point, because I feel like obviously they were hoping to be able to conceive to do both parts and present them this way, the first half as the children's story, and then as the novels laid out, the second half as the grown-up adults and what happens so many years later. And obviously that did pan out, because if they were worried about how it would be received and whether it would do well enough to warrant a good sequel with a good budget, for instance, I mean, the September 2017 first chapter was only budgeted at $35 million and globally made $700 million.
Yeah.
Just a couple quick ranking order records or places that it holds. It has the highest domestic weekend opening in September ever. It has the third highest R-rated domestic opening weekend ever, regardless of the month of year. The only two movies ahead of it are Deadpool 2 at number 2 and Deadpool 1 at number 1.
Wait, the Passion didn't open above it?
Opening, no.
Ah, okay.
But fourth highest domestic grossing entirely, it is at number 4. So number 3 is American Sniper, number 2 is Deadpool, and number 1 is Passion of the Christ.
Yeah.
Yes. And it is only one spot ahead of Deadpool 2, which is at number 5 for domestic all-time grossing R-rated.
Yeah.
The same director is returning to helm this as well, as I'm sure was the hope and plan from the beginning when they went into production on the first movie. Of the 3 screenwriters in the first film, it has been whittled down to 1. One of those 3 is sticking around and is the lone credit on this one. As we've been alluding, so the what this story will predominantly be will be adult versions of those child characters from the first movie appearing in this second chapter. Bill Skarsgård is returning to continue portraying Pennywise, the nightmare clown. The only 3 adult actors, and I don't mean any disrespect to the others, but the only 3 that really stand out to me of note that I think people would easily recognize: Jessica Chastain, James McAvoy, and Bill Hader are going to be the adult counterparts to some of the child characters from the first chapter. How are your feelings with horror movie opening weekends? Because I have mixed feelings. There can be a good energy, like in the same way there is for a Marvel movie, for instance. But it can also be, in my opinion, really distracting, because there are some people who really like the horror genre who, I don't want to say this. There are, of the people who don't know how to behave in a damn public movie theater, there's a high concentration of them that end up in scary movies. And so for something big like this, that's going to be huge, it's going to be a big opening weekend, I'm wary about whether I want to try to experience it with a full theater on Saturday night, or if I'm going to try to do a matinee at 1 o'clock on Sunday. Where do you fall?
I do the matinee at 1 o'clock on Sunday for almost everything.
Okay.
So horror movies are no different for me. The only exceptions I make to that are things like Star Wars, MCU movies.
Mm-hmm.
That's about it.
Okay.
If it's going to be a crowded theater. I think we talked before the show about Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. I went there Friday afternoon. I think it was a 6 o'clock show or a 7 o'clock show we went to see. There was 12 people in the theater. You know, I was not anticipating a huge crowd at a Tarantino movie.
Sure.
I mean, anything that kids are generally not going to be taken to, you can count a little bit on the downsized of the audience, but in the case of something like it's going to get enough people out.
Oh, there will be so many kids dragged to this movie with older people because those older people want to see it.
Yeah.
It's going to be bad.
Yeah.
Like having worked at a theater while the first movie was out, this was one of the most egregious that I saw. Like, of all kind of scary movies that were out and stuff that, like, R-rated stuff that kids should not have been in.
Yeah.
You know, a 6-year-old does not need to be dragged to it because
and
their 20-some-year-old parent or guardian or whoever wants to say, like, but that's going to happen because of the public attitude toward this.
And that's how that whole fear of clowns starts, is your parents scar you that young with having to see it in the theater before you're ready, and there you go. Somebody's afraid of clowns their whole life.
Yeah, apparently. I'm hoping for the best because I am looking forward to this. I think it was one of the most well-done scary movies in a long, long time. So I'm hoping that the experience...
You can finish your thought. Those are the rules.
This is true. Yeah, I think it was... since it was one of the most well-done in such a long time, I think the anticipation for me on this is definitely palpable. And I think I just think it's going to be a good movie. I do. In advance, I already think it's going to be a really good thriller, and I'm going to love it. I just don't want it to be ruined by people who don't know how to behave in public. Which is always the risk when you go out anywhere, I know. But like I said, I both as a movie goer in theaters and as a former employee, I've seen the makeup of people that come out for movies like this, and they have a really high potential of ruining it. So we shall see. But I guess that's it for It Chapter 2. If you want to avoid the scary clowns, do not go to the theater to see that on September the 6th. The next one, I don't know if we've actually talked about this much before. The next season of American Horror Story will premiere on television September 18th. This is season 9 of the show. It is subtitled 1984. I know, speaking personally, Sarah and I are we enjoy the series as a whole. We watched the first 3 seasons, Murder House, Asylum, and Covenant. We started to watch Freak Show and really did not like it at all, so we stopped after like 3 episodes. We got back in and watched Hotel, season 5, which we really dug a lot, but we haven't been back since, and it's just mostly been because of life and because of an infinite amount of other choices. So we're a couple seasons behind, so I might eventually, I mean, at this rate, in a couple years, end up getting back to this season and seeing what it's about. But have you guys watched the other shows previously?
Amy has watched every season.
Okay.
I have watched half of one episode.
Okay.
I've been told I need to watch, I think, seasons 5, 6, and 7. Personally, because I got through half of one episode because I really just don't like Jessica Lange.
Interesting. I think that is the first time I've heard anyone have a strong opinion.
I mean, I can explain it
to
Jessica
Lange.
A certain extent, is that she's had so much work done on her face that it starts to like irk me to just watch her.
Does it distract you because you can't you can't pull yourself away from that?
From the Botox, I can't.
Okay.
There's just too much going on there. I can't. Anybody like that. Anybody that has that, the Botox puffed up, weird, doesn't look natural anymore type of thing. They pull me completely out of anything I could be watching, which is sad because the rest of the damn cast I love, but she plays such a huge role. Seemingly it's thrown me off, but evidently I've been told she's not in seasons 5, 6, or 7.
I was just trying, as you said that, I was trying to rack my brain that like I said, the last season we watched was 5, and I don't recall her being in that at all. And I said we haven't picked up and moved forward yet, but the hotel season was really solid. That's the first one. Well, I say first because I don't know beyond. That is the season where Lady Gaga joined.
Yeah.
For that anthology cast, and it's actually really damn good. I think Matt Bomer came in for that season too. It's really good.
Yeah, I again plan to watch those seasons because each one seems interesting. It's just it's a series that I wrote off and stopped paying attention to because of the reason I gave.
Certain things. Yeah.
But Amy has thoroughly enjoyed every season of it, so I'm sure she will be watching. I own all of these seasons because she buys them because I don't actually have the channel that they're aired on.
Okay,
so I
yeah.
either have to buy them or they wait till they show up on Netflix.
Which is mostly what we did on the back end, yeah.
She just can't wait. She likes the show so much. As soon as it comes out, she buys it, she watches it. She's all over it.
I would say, I mean, this is, aside from a couple bit parts in other projects, this is the show that definitely introduced me to Evan Peters.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I knew him as an actor very well before, X-Men Days of Future Past, before he was Quicksilver. I was like, oh, that was that kid who was the friend of Kick-Ass in Kick-Ass.
Yes.
And he's also he's the kid from, like, in my opinion, like, he steals most of the first season of American Horror Story, Murder House. He's very good in it. And he's been, him and Sarah Paulson too. Good Lord, I love Sarah Paulson. I will watch her in anything solely based on how good she is in every role she's in on this show, because the premise and most of the cast makeup changes every season, and so everyone's in they're a completely different character. After
right.
10 episodes, it's over and they start over with something else. And there's been many actors coming in and out of the anthology throughout seasons that have been really wonderful. Like Emma Roberts is surprisingly really good in Covenant, I think, season 3.
She was good in Scream Queens too.
Sarah watched a bit of that. I never really got into it, but she really enjoyed it.
It was okay. I mean, it had its niche. You know what I mean? Like it wasn't taking itself seriously, so it worked in that essence. I'm
not sure whatever really happened. Did that just kind of that show just didn't have ratings, or kind of just petered off?
I'm not sure. We watched it. It was like Hulu, I think we watched it on.
Uh-huh.
So it was free to watch, and I don't know when it originally aired or anything like that, but I mean, it was decent. I didn't think it should have been canceled, but
yeah,
I mean, God only knows. I mean, they probably overshot their budget with Jamie Lee Curtis and Emma Roberts and Billy Lord and so on with the cast that probably was a little bit expensive.
So it had some problems, but
for a television show, that's expensive.
Yeah, it looks like everyone fell well on their feet, though.
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess pulling back to American Horror Story, so it premieres on FX September 18th, and it sounds like maybe someone in your household will be watching it as soon as humanly possible, and me and Sarah may get to it eventually once we catch up like the other 4 seasons we're behind.
Fair enough.
All right, well, we didn't hit the buzzer on that one, so no reason to be spooked this time around. This I've been waiting all day to hear your input on this next one. So this is okay. This is Friday, September 19th, the Friday following the premiere of American Horror Story. This movie is called 3 from Hell, and it is a sequel to the movie Devil's Rejects, which in turn was a sequel to a movie called House of a Thousand Corpses. all of those were written and directed by Rob Zombie, who we mentioned earlier in our Halloween discussion. House of a Thousand Corpses, I believe, was his directorial debut.
Sounds accurate.
And I think he did then Devil's Rejects, and then right after that he did a Halloween remake and a sequel, and then went back to making his own stuff when that wasn't going to continue. So I think it was around 2012 or 13 he released Lords of Salem, which I have not seen, and then a few years later, maybe 2015, 2016, released a movie called 31. I can't remember, in a previous discussion, one of those two movies has a scene that you mentioned from an actor, who's also in this 3 from Hell. I can't think of his name. He played Joe Chill in Batman Begins. You called him out because you said it was like the only redeeming scene of the movie. And I thought we might be talking about 31.
Yes, it is 31.
It was it's going to be right. Richard Brake.
Yes, Richard Brake
actor
in 31. His performance is fantastically evil, sadistic. I felt like you couldn't have given a better audition to be the Joker than what he did in that movie. But it was also so many other things. The rest of that movie's complete dog shit. But
so
I think we discussed it before. There's actually one of the killers in the movie running around is a Mexican midget Nazi, dressed up like Hitler, but in bondage gear.
Oh God!
This is one of the killers in the movie. This is how ridiculous that movie is. So, in a movie like that, Richard Brake gives an amazing performance as a horror villain, and as just, in general, just one of the creepiest kind of... And they give him a monologue, they give him lots of screen time. And yeah, the rest of that is awful.
So did you see Lords of Salem? I did not.
Yeah, I mean, it's, again, I won't get into how much I didn't enjoy that.
Okay. So maybe we're sort of on the same page then, because I don't mean this like as a personal hit to Rob Zombie, but I have found that other than Halloween, well, I'll say I probably wouldn't have enjoyed Halloween had they not been remakes of movies that I already liked. I find that I don't feel that I enjoy his brand of movie making.
See, where I did not like the Halloween movies, because I felt like they were wrong for what should have been.
Well, I think that was the only way that I would have hated them. I would have disliked them as much as I dislike his other movies, but I disliked them slightly less because they came from a world that I did already enjoy. Like, if they had been original creations of his flat out, I probably wouldn't have cared for them whatsoever.
And alternatively, for me, House of a Thousand Corpses and Devil's Rejects, I actually thoroughly enjoy.
Okay, so that's the part that I could have sworn that you did share before. So given that, it's 14 years, I think?
It's a long
After
time.
Devil's Rejects, we're getting back to the group of Baby, Captain Spaulding, and Otis.
Yes.
And those actors are all returning. So was this anything you're looking forward to?
I was shocked that they got Sid Haig to come back. There was a convention, I want to say it was 3 years ago, maybe 2 years ago. Can't remember specifically, but he did a convention in I want to say it was Indianapolis, where he officially said, "This is my last time appearing in makeup as Captain Spaulding. It's never going to happen again. That's it. I'm hanging the character up."
Meaning, like, was he appearing in makeup as
Yes.
Spaulding at that convention?
For the last time ever is what he said. This is
okay. So I'm
the last
I just
time...
happen to be here at the convention. I'm in the costume, but this is literally I'm not ever even gonna like for a con, for an appearance, nothing. I'm never gonna do this again.
Yeah.
Okay.
He was retiring the character, and from then on it would just be Sid Haig as Sid Haig, showing up at conventions or in films, whatever. Which he may not put on the makeup and become Captain Spaulding here. He may just, but being a sequel to those films, given how The Devil's Rejects ends, I'm very curious to see how the hell they spin that. Because they kind of just go down in a rain of gunfire and
that's how I remember it. The
shit.
only time that I've seen that's how I remember it. Like they're driving toward the like massive police blockade in their open top convertible.
Yeah.
And I guess I forget. Do they explicitly show any of them getting shot before it goes to black, or is it just very obviously heavily implied that they're just driving to their death?
I'd have to watch it again. I'm pretty sure you see.
I'm not going to watch it again. So,
see, I love the movie, so I'm on the other end, but I'm pretty sure it shows them being shot up pretty good.
Okay. I mean,
or at least the after effects of it. You may not.
Yeah, I'll give you that.
You may not see them actually get shot up, but I have this vivid imagery in my head of Bill Moseley and Sid Haig like just bloodied up at the end of it.
I could see that. I mean, as twisted and strange as Zombie's mind can be and his storytelling, I'm sure he can spin something to explain why they're still alive.
Sure. But I mean, I'm interested to see where he goes with it. And see what comes of it. But who the hell knows? Because since Devil's Rejects, to me, he's made just complete trash. So...
on the one hand, I mean, I definitely can't necessarily judge that because, like I said, my opinion of the Halloween movies, I really didn't like House of a Thousand Corpses that much. Well, like really at all. And Devil's Rejects was barely watchable for me, and I never stepped back in to check the other ones out. But I don't even like after you get to see it, I don't know if I would have much to contribute because I honestly couldn't say that I will ever get around to choose to watching this movie.
I mean, that's fair. He's not like I can't defend him as a director. I can't even defend those stories that he's telling or the arcs or anything like that. But what I can say is that I enjoy those movies much more so for the performances given by Sid Haig and by Bill Moseley.
Okay.
I mean, that's very much more where I'm at. I just enjoy them enough that I thoroughly enjoy the movies. Without the two of them, there's nothing there. So... yeah.
So, I mean... this is kind of going off topic, but like if I knew that it had something like a fun aspect to it, like I'm about to discuss, like maybe it would sound more appealing to me. I forget what Sarah and I were doing. I think we have like a horror movie trivia card game, something we bought somewhere. And it's more like a travel game. It's just like a pack of like trivia cards. And I haven't seen House of a Thousand Corpses since 2003. Like, since the year it released.
Right.
There's several people in it that I didn't know who they were at the time anyway, and so that I completely forgot were in it regardless. And so I went back to look, and Walton Goggins...
yes.
Chris Hardwick...
yes.
And Rainn Wilson...
yes.
Are in House of a Thousand Corpses.
Yep.
That's effed up.
Go back to any horror movies, though, and how many
I know.
Get their start there.
Jennifer Aniston in Leprechaun, and Renee Zellweger and McConaughey in Texas Chainsaw 4.
Yeah. Well, I
know.
So many of them, you can go back in so many horror movie franchises and find even people that aren't like A-listers like you're talking about that are just like, oh, that guy. Like a Walton Goggins, who, like, you and I know who Walton Goggins is by name, but not everybody's going to know that guy by name at this point.
Right, but they'll recognize his face.
Right. When they see
one
him,
of those
they'll
face
say,
people.
That guy.
That guy.
He was in that movie. And, I think Chris Hardwick, a lot of people recognize now because of the Talking Dead, but...
Oh, of course.
Other than that, he would probably be somebody that people would say, who?
True.
But they would recognize the face, and they would say, oh, okay, and then they'd try to remember where they knew him from.
Yeah.
But there's so many people like that in horror movies along the way.
Oh, definitely.
And yeah, I don't think that I'm surprised by any of those when I had gone back and seen them, because you don't remember those guys.
No.
But then you go back and you see it, and you're like, fucking Dwight Schrute's in House of a Thousand Corpses, holy shit.
Yeah, right.
And then you think about the character, and it kind of fits. And
well, you'll have to, if you get around to this one while it's out in theaters or whatever, you'll have to come back and tell us if it lived up to any expectations. If you liked the two preceding chapters, because like I said, unfortunately, even within our group, you might be on your own on this one.
I'm sure that I am, and that's okay.
Yeah.
Not everything is for everyone, and it doesn't have to be.
Well, we looks like we made it just under the buzzer for that one. Unless any closing thoughts for 3 from Hell?
Not really.
All right. The next one we have is coming out at the end of September 27th. It is called The Hunt. And this is another one that I'm not sure exactly what to make of the tone, whether it's supposed to be horror comedy or it's going to be, more of like a effed up thriller. It's again listing it as just action horror thriller. Because it could go a number of ways given the premise. The basic synopsis on the movie says 12 strangers wake up in a clearing. They don't know where they are or how they got there. That's a very big trope, but that's okay. They don't know
Predators.
They've been chosen. What's that?
Predators.
Oh, yeah. Take anything. Like there was a movie with Greg Kinnear. Maybe it's called I have to find it. It's like The Unknown or something. So yeah, so many movies like that just start that way. Saw is a good example. Exactly how that happens. So they don't know what they've been chosen for a very specific purpose. The Hunt.
Sounds like Predators.
Right, exactly. But it looks like it's, from what I can tell, it almost looks like it's on like a homestead. I can't yet tell if it's modern day, if it's a little bit like a period piece, if it's somewhat olden times. But again, like no disrespect to the director, but there's not a like huge standout thing that I think I could offer anybody to say like, well, if you've seen X, Y, and Z, you'd recognize him from that. But one of the co-writers on this is Damon Lindelof of Lost fame, and he's a screenwriter on Cowboys and Aliens, Prometheus, Star Trek Into Darkness, World War Z, Tomorrowland.
Okay.
And is working on the Watchmen series that's going to be out on HBO soon. I think he got most of his notoriety at first from developing and writing the first bit of Lost with JJ. A couple names that stick out starring in the movie: Hilary Swank, Emma Roberts, who we just talked about, Ethan Suplee, who comes from some of like the Jay and Silent Bob, Kevin Smith movies, but was also on, I think it was on My Name is Earl, right?
Yes.
I think for years.
Randy.
And then there's an actor I'm going to call out. His name is, I think it's Macon or Macon, Macon is his first name, Macon Blair. Nobody knows who this person is. That's fine. You're not supposed to. He was in a movie called The Green Room that was made by a guy named Jeremy Saulnier. This was one of the last bigger-ish released movies that Anton Yelchin made just before he died. I think it was released around the time that he passed, like just before Star Trek Beyond as well. But Macon plays a role in that, and then he's basically the main actor the lead role in a movie called Blue Ruin, which the director and writer of Green Room also made. I actually think he's very talented, and he's just like a no-name to most people that I'm just going to shout out because I think he's kind of like a hidden treasure. He's very natural, and he has been in things that people know and have seen him in, but he's not even that guy yet. He may get there eventually. But he's around in this movie as well. Again, not really sure what to think about this yet. I guess the premise could go an original way, or it could seem very very tropish. I mean, in my mind, calling it The Hunt, it has like a Purge type feeling to me. It has like The Greatest Game kind of feeling. There's not much yet available for it, but given some of the credentials of the people involved, I thought, we'll add it to the list. We'll see how it sticks. What does it feel like to you so far? Anything sounding like it would coax you in?
I mean, as far as I know, we don't have a trailer or anything yet for this. I don't believe.
It looks like there might be a quick, like a 1 minute teaser that they're calling it, but not a ton to go by.
Okay. I mean, for me, it'll be something that sounds like I'll probably watch it. Like, it sounds... Anything called The Hunt, it sounds like they're going to pit people against people and see what happens. Like, that's what it sounds like to me. But at the same time, I mean, it's a horror movie with an interesting premise, at least, even if it's not the most original. I'll probably watch it. This one is, I'm not very familiar with it. I actually had to look it up when you sent me the list for the episode tonight. Mm-hmm. So I don't have a lot to go on here.
Yeah, me neither. And I think it's just going to be like, maybe if it, depending on how wide of a release it gets, it's going to be like, hey, it's Saturday afternoon. We have nothing going on. That Hunt movie came out. Is it playing nearby? Okay. You want to spend a couple bucks? Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I don't have anything against any of the cast or anything like that, so, it's a see what happens.
Yeah, I'm with you. All right, well, we made it just under the gun. Well, not even just under the gun, with a lot of time to spare on that one, but that is fine. That's how these things go. So let's see what is next. All right, and this next topic I'm really excited for because it's been a long time since we've had an Addams Family movie, but we're going to get a new entry on October 11th, only this time it has somewhat of a, like, I think it's supposed to look like it was claymation, but it's a CGI version of making claymation almost.
Yeah.
I have always liked the weirdness of the Addams Family, the strangeness, it's all like the gothic nature of it, and just how weird they are in like accidentally purposely hurting themselves or causing damage. It was such a strange, little nexus there to create, but it was charming in some way. As an animated film goes, was this anything that you care to have? Are you okay with the couple like live action movies that exist? What are you thinking?
So when this first got announced that they were making a new Addams Family movie, it was not announced that it was going to be animation with the first announcement, but they did have the cast, or at least some of it, and they said, "Oh, we're getting Oscar Isaac and Charlize Theron to be Gomez and Morticia." And I said, "Holy shit, that's amazing! I need to see this movie." And then they said it's going to be animated, and I'm like, I'm still interested, but you just broke my heart a little bit. Like,
yeah.
Like, seeing those two as like the headliners for the movie, I was like, oh my god, that could be amazing if this is, and then they say it's not live action. You're like, just deflated. Just, so my disappointment from that is still lingering.
Yeah, because I think especially with me, with Oscar Isaac, if you, not even in all aspects, just in this specific one, it was like Oscar Isaac as Gomez Addams is a thing that I didn't know I wanted so much until you told me it was a thing.
Yeah.
And like in that instance, I'm like, that is the absolute spiritual successor from Raul Julia as Gomez Addams. That is perfect. But and you're right. So having such absolute ideal casting to then be told, well, you're never going to see Oscar Isaac. You're not going to see him in the black clothing with the pencil mustache, the slick hair. You're not going to get that. I understand what you mean by that. Do you think Charlize Theron would have been as compelling of a Morticia in person? Maybe because like everything she does is in I hate to say it, like she has light hair in everything. It's hard for me to picture her in like black
works.
hair and everything.
Hey, on Flux.
Yeah, but I mean, true, that exists, but I don't know if I can transform her in my mind as easily into Morticia as I can Oscar Isaac into Gomez.
Well, with Morticia, you also have to remember she's going to be wearing an extreme amount of white makeup.
Sure.
Because, Morticia has like the whole kind of vampire-y thing going with her look.
It's very long, lanky hair. The outfit, the clothing, the wardrobe would do a lot to help sell it.
But seeing like the two of them, I think together, I can see like the chemistry as Gomez and Morticia in my head working. Like I see the two of them in my head, and I'm like, that's gonna work.
Yeah.
And I want to see it. And then I'm just waiting, like, who's Uncle Fester? Who's Uncle Fester? And part of me's like Nick Offerman. But
if it was live action,
yeah,
I could see that potentially.
I feel like he would have fun with that.
So we've spent so far talking about like fan casting a new Family Addams movie as opposed to talking about the one that exists. So
yeah, okay. So
given what we're not going to get, how do you feel so far about what we will be?
Well, I was using it just to preface, like, I think I feel less excited for it than I would had I not been deceived by the casting announcements.
Okay.
Like, I feel like if you just tell me, like, oh, they're making an animated Addams Family movie, I'm like, awesome. And then you say, Oscar Isaac's going to do the voice for Gomez. You're like, cool. You don't even give it that same thought of the potential live action.
Like, you had something, it's not taken away from you as much.
Right. So, my excitement for it is less than it would be.
Uh-huh.
But it's still the Addams Family. The trailer looks fun. It looks like it's going to be a fun movie.
I think like the style of the animation to me, like it looks like they're leaning toward like a Corpse Bride style, which tried to replicate, Nightmare Before Christmas. But overall it still reminds me more of Hotel Transylvania. Like a mixture of like Corpse Bride with Hotel Transylvania style animation.
I've seen the other ones, but I've never seen Hotel Transylvania.
Yeah.
So, can't comment.
We at least get a couple more fun faces. Well, voices rather. Chloe Moretz is Wednesday. Finn Wolfhard from It and Stranger Things is Pugsley. Allison Janney is in it. Bette Midler is playing the grandmother. Your Uncle Fester is Nick Kroll. That could be fun.
Yeah. He couldn't do live action, but in a voice role, absolutely.
Yeah. I think that could really be where he excels there. Like I said, we get this a little earlier than I would have thought in the month. It's October 11th, but I guess maybe as an animated film, it's going to... I don't see a rating on here yet. I'm assuming it's going to be PG. Definitely, PG-13 at the absolute most, so it's going to be...
I think even the old live actions were PG. Like
they might have been. I'd look real quick. They might have been PG-13 because of some of the like disturbing humor or things that they use. Maybe.
Yeah, there may have been a random qualifier in there that bumped them up, but I feel like the Addams Family isn't something that's meant to be adult. It's meant to be a family thing, like a creepy family, Halloween-y kind of fun thing to go watch. It's not really horror. It's it's definitely of the season.
Yeah, and especially with this being animated, I'm expecting, that they're going for a family, younger kid market with it, but I'm still hoping there's enough twisted about it that as an adult I can still enjoy it.
Yeah, it's gotta be twisted weird as opposed to twisted funny or weird funny. It's gotta be like those things that make no sense.
Yeah.
I mean, it's got to Tim Burton it up a little bit. Like
it's a good way to put it. Yeah, I think it has potential to be really enjoyable. I just don't want it to be so kid friendly that they suck all of the twisted charm out of what makes the Addams Family its unique thing.
Makes it the Addams Family.
Exactly. You can make a strange family that is just quirky and has weird looking people and whatnot, but the Addams Family...
They did that. It's called the Munsters.
Right. And there's been different incarnations of those types of things in kids' movies the last, decade and a half. So I'm hoping that they keep enough of, wow, that's actually kind of sick that that's how these people behave.
Yeah.
And that's really morbid. I want that still there.
Yeah. Definitely. But time will tell on that, I guess. But, we can hope that it stays true to the Addams Family. But
yeah. And this was one that it did not make my 10 anticipated, but it did go on my must see calendar for the year. Fair enough. And it went there at the beginning of the year. So some things get added on later as I learn about them because I didn't know about them before the year started. And there's some things that I end up seeing that aren't on the calendar, but that's okay too. This is just my hey, I have my top 10. And then there's the I definitely absolutely want to see these. So this was there from the beginning. So I'm definitely... And once we get into October, Sarah and I are in full Halloween mode as much as we ever can be. We just love that whole season. It's our favorite holiday. So I think, for me, this is a good, more, traditional but proper kickoff for Halloween season. Halloween feeling. As opposed to, just being a scary movie like It. This is Halloween-y to me.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it comes down to, there's a few things you always watch around the Halloween season. The Addams Family is one of them. To me, I always watch at least a few Harry Potter films because it has that tone to it. But having the Addams Family be a part of this season is going to be fun. And I knew about this going into my top 10 list. And had it actually been a live-action film with Oscar Isaac and Charlize Theron, it probably would have made my top 10.
It probably would have, yeah.
So, again, I can't stress enough how disappointed I was when I found that out. It just ruined me. It's so perfect to have Oscar Isaac as Gomez. You're right. It's just so good that not getting it for real is can somebody just take that idea and run with it for next year or the year after or something, be like, hey, he would be really great. Can we just actually do it?
And we'll find out. We'll find out in a couple months or not whether they were able to pull this version of it off or not.
Yeah.
So, that's the Addams Family right at the buzzer. Good timing. So our next entry, I think, is going to be probably our second big cornerstone discussion for the episode. This movie, which releases on October 18th, this made both of our top 10 anticipated lists. I believe it was in the number 2 slot for both of us.
Yeah.
And I will admit I made a revision to my list once the Jay and Silent Bob reboot was finished and confirmed. I mean, it wasn't even happening. It literally... They just shot the movie in February, so there was no way it could have been known. So this got bumped, admittedly, to my number 3.
Okay.
Jay and Bob got put in at 2, but that just tells you how what it took to knock something down. It was a Endgame, and for me a Jay and Bob movie, a Kevin Smith movie. So no more spoilers. No more beating around the bush. It's Zombieland double tap.
Yeah, I mean, I can say for me, it was above Endgame.
Was it? Or what was your number 1?
Star Wars.
Was it? Okay.
Yeah, but I never gave thought to revising the list after the reboot came up. I never really think about that list again until the next year when we talk about it again. I mean, I give my honest list, and then, there's lots of movies that I didn't know about. Is an example, The Dead Don't Die from Jim Jarmusch, that would have been on my list had I known about it when we did our previous lists, and spoiler, it's not making my top 10 from the year. Like,
yeah.
You know, but nonetheless, Zombieland 2, the first movie, I couldn't say enough about it, so I'm just gonna say, if you haven't seen Zombieland, Brian,
I'm gonna say, what the hell is wrong with you? Brian? I will say that. Like anybody, I
Brian.
There's a little bit of the I don't like horror movie stuff to get over. Otherwise, it's funny as hell. It's a great character movie. It's an adventure. It's effed up. It's everything. It is amazing.
Honestly, that is one of the first films as an adult I can remember actually shedding a tear at.
Really?
When he, as an adult,
well, okay, go ahead.
When he gets his Twinkie at the end, the look on his face when he gets the Twinkie. It's
really?
just that moment you see pure
not when you realize
joy.
Not when you realize that the puppy he was talking about earlier in the movie was actually his small child son.
See, I don't
but
have like
Twinkie,
tears of sorrow that pop up for anything.
Because he threw a shit fit about the snowballs earlier in the movie. Then he finally gets his Twinkie, and you're happy for him.
There is several moments that we discuss Twinkies in that movie. It is a serious character building thing for Tallahassee, but it's also something where I would say, again, sorrow doesn't get me to cry. I don't cry over sad things.
Okay, fair.
Tears of joy will happen occasionally, and as an adult, that's the first time I remember being like choked up at a moment in a movie that, you know, because that was so perfect in so many ways I can't even express. So, having said all that, we've seen the trailer now. Yes, I assume you've watched this. You're not going dark on this one, I assume.
This one, no. If they release anything else, I'm not going to. Like, I'm kind of hating that I have to have the IMDb page up in front of me for this discussion to be useful for the listener, because there's there's additional casting
that you don't want to know about.
That I don't want to know about.
Surprise people that you're like, oh, damn.
So I'm not even going to share it with like listeners who I know who are big fans of this movie. I'm not going to tell you some of the additional people because they don't pop up in the trailer, because you're going to want that to be a surprise.
Yeah.
So yeah, if they release anything else, I'm not going to watch, but I did see the one they released right after Comic-Con.
Yeah. So I mean, I'll throw it to you. What's your favorite moment in the trailer?
So I just took in sort of the pure joy of seeing all the imagery. I couldn't actually repeat back to you anything I remember specifically from the trailer. I watched it 3 or 4 times. It's just I'm watching, just loving. Oh my God, there's Woody Harrelson, and look, Emma Stone. She has won an Oscar for Best Actress since that other movie came out, and she came back to do this.
Well, that's what I love that they point that out at the beginning of the trailer. They're like, like Academy Award nominee, Academy Award nominee,
oh, yeah.
Academy Award nominee, Academy
like they
Award
all
winner.
Because I think Eisenberg was nominated for The Social Network, I think.
Yeah, that sounds right.
And I believe wasn't Breslin nominated for Little Miss Sunshine?
Sounds right.
Which would have happened before the first Zombieland, but still, yes.
Yeah, but she was a kid.
Principal main cast made up of Oscar winners and or nominees, and they're coming back a decade later.
Yeah.
10 entire years later for a sequel that people have been asking and hoping for so long, and they're finally making it happen.
Exactly.
So yeah, I tell you, long answer to your question though about like favorite movement in the trailer. I barely remember most of what I saw just because I'm like, oh, look at this. I'm seeing a zombie and there's those people and they're all there. They're on screen. I'm so happy. It just...
Fair enough.
I didn't retain anything.
I mean, I personally can pull 2 quick moments.
Yeah.
One is very early in the trailer. You just see the look of sheer joy on the face of Tallahassee as he tackles a zombie.
Okay.
Like he goes like... It's just a smiling, having fun face while he's attacking a zombie. And it's just so perfectly in character. It was fantastic. And then at the end, Columbus and Tallahassee meeting their alter egos a la Shaun of the Dead.
That was amazing. That was great.
Yeah. So I'm really interested to see what they do with that, or if it's just going to be like a passing thing like it was in Shaun of the Dead, where they just kind of happen upon each other, have a scene, and then go their separate ways, or do they become like part of the group or something?
Yeah.
You know, like what happens?
I love the idea that, because I think it's Luke Wilson, right? Who is the like equivalent to Woody Harrelson. So I think like there's many different ways to have an analogous character to the type of personality that Woody Harrelson's character of Tallahassee has. And so the way that Luke Wilson is doing it is like one of those ways. I think it's more difficult to try to match Jesse Eisenberg's particular brand of hesitancy and the I don't say like the shyness,
peppy little spit fuck.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, to use Tallahassee's words from the first movie. Yes, I think that's actually kind of difficult, and the actor and the character that they have being like his doppelganger to Luke Wilson's character, that is what got me to laugh much more, because it's much more quirky, and to have someone having those same kind of idiosyncrasies and whatnot, that's what got me more.
Yeah, I mean, there's, as you said, there's a laundry list of guys in Hollywood that could play a character just like Woody Harrelson plays in Tallahassee. There's tons of them.
Yeah.
There's not very many people that could pull off a Jesse Eisenberg replacement. He's a very unique type of person in his mannerisms and just everything about him in general. I would say is fairly unique to him.
Yeah. I think I put out a similar, not a challenge per se, but an agreement with Brian previously about might have been a Fast and the Furious movie. Or no, but I think I was trying to trade him for Cabin in the Woods. I will make a deal. I will watch 2 Fast and the Furious movies with you, Brian, if you sit down and watch Zombieland with us.
He's talking Too Fast, Too Furious even. And then another movie.
Whatever 2 you want to pick, because I haven't seen any of them.
That's literally the name of one of them. Too Fast, Too Furious. That
sure
is
it is.
actually the name.
You don't have to show them to me in the order that they take place. You can screw whatever you want to do. You can pick 2 of whatever, like 18 of these damn things exist. And I will sit and watch them with you if you agree to watch Zombieland. So, challenge is on the table.
There's nothing that I don't watch, so I can't make any kind of offer like that. I'm not like, oh, I won't watch this. I'll watch a Joaquin Phoenix movie with you, Brian.
You really don't like Joaquin Phoenix?
No, I fucking hate him. I hate his face. It's just, I can't, no. Like, I got through Gladiator because Gladiator was amazing, and other than that, forget it. Having said that, Zombieland 2.
Yes. This is one if there's nothing else holding us back, we will absolutely be there opening night. If not, like definitely opening weekend. It might be a Friday night thing, but definitely like Friday or Saturday night, we will be out.
I mean, if they put a Thursday release on it, I will be there.
Sure, maybe even that. Yeah.
Yeah. Whatever the first chance I get to see this, I will definitely be seeing it.
Like I don't even know per
multiple times in the theater for sure.
Yeah, like we're about to run out of time on this, but I don't know like what the box office on Zombieland did. Like it was rated R, so like I don't know what the budget was. I don't know how much it made. Maybe that was one of the reasons getting a sequel made took so long. Whatnot. I think it was something that also festered over time. I don't think it was a massive hit right away.
Yeah,
screw that. We're gonna finish this.
It became a cult hit. Is what happened. Like I didn't see the original in the theater. Okay. I knew nothing about it. Like I had heard of it, but at that time it was like, oh, Woody Harrelson's in it. Oh, okay. And then it was like, okay, well, we'll check it out someday. Sure. And then I watched it, and the first time I watched it, I'm like, holy fuck, where was the marketing for this movie?
Yeah.
You know, like it was just one of those things where you see this movie and you're like, had they marketed how good this movie was going to be instead of whatever they gave for the first
whatever
time?
Whatever they did do, yeah.
It would have all been right there.
It would have been great.
So this time they don't need to market it, and the first time they marketed it poorly. So sorry if you're on the marketing team for this movie in any capacity, but you either didn't need to do your job or you didn't do your job. So
yeah, you know what? I think the audience for this, similar kind of to a Kevin Smith movie and to some other things like the Rob Zombie crowd, for instance. I think the audience is already built in. If there's not gonna, I don't think there's gonna be a tremendous percentage of people who see this movie who haven't seen the first one and or don't absolutely love the first one. There's not gonna be like a casual, oh, that was out, I guess let's see that. Sure, it's right. Like Halloween, it's zombies, right, and stuff. Like, no, the audience who wants this movie, every single damn one of them is going to see it.
Yeah, and that audience has grown significantly since the first movie came out. So
I would agree.
Hopefully the box office is good enough that we can get another one someday.
I agree, and hopefully it doesn't take a decade.
Yeah, no, we don't need that.
Yeah. All right, well, we did violate our own rules a little bit, but I think it was for a good cause. We have 4 more entries to get to you, and I don't think many of these are going to take a tremendous amount of time, but this kind of rounds out the rest of the year from what I could find. Shortly after Halloween on November the 8th, we will get the what I believe is the long ruminating sequel to The Shining. It is called Dr. Sleep. That was the name of the novel that I believe Stephen King wrote as the sequel to The Shining. It's similar to It in the way that the main character, I believe, is like the little boy in The Shining. This is him grown up. The adult Danny Torrance, who will be played by Ewan McGregor. I'm not sure like how much of it has to do with the Overlook Hotel again, or really connects in the story itself per se, but as much as The Shining book and film, because it was Kubrick and it was Nicholson and here's Johnny and all, you know, no sleep, no play makes Jack a dull boy, all that stuff. Come play with us, Danny, the twins, everything. I presumed that this was looked forward to by at least some crowd enough. I think I appreciate The Shining enough that I'd want to see what comes next and what this is supposed to do. It definitely wasn't high on my radar. I won't lose, no pun intended, I won't lose sleep over it if I miss it for a while. But, I mean, to grab someone like Ewan McGregor to be a part of it, I think says something about the project. Rebecca Ferguson is, I think, playing a large role as well. So that's where it's starting from. Where do you fall down?
Well, here's the thing. I am a huge fan of The Shining. I love the original movie. But, as you so rightly pointed out, this isn't Nicholson, obviously. But even more importantly, it's not Stanley Kubrick.
Sure.
And, there's some directors you can plug in and plug out of movies, and you can come fairly similar to what they did. Stanley Kubrick is not one of those people. The movies he has made and how he made movies it was very unique. It was very, depending on your bent, sometimes fantastic and sometimes god-awful. But I think in this particular case, his vision is what brought The Shining to life.
Okay.
It was never
sort of like a showrunner would have.
Yes.
Okay.
It was never one of like the more popular Stephen King novels until the movie came out, and then everybody kind of got on board reading it. As far as I know, at least as far as like the popularity of reading it went. Mm-hmm. But even still, the book itself is not it's one of those rare cases. I'll say this: The Shining as a movie was better than the book.
Okay.
And that's saying something when it's a Stephen King book that we're talking about. An early Stephen King book. Because let's face it, he also did write Cujo. Sorry, Stephen, you know what you did. It's also something that it's going to be really hard to fill those shoes. And if you're making a direct sequel to it, I'm hoping they can do it justice.
Okay.
But it's one of those things where I was like silently aware that they were doing this movie,
right.
But I was not looking too much into it because it was kind of like I'm not expecting great things, but then they signed Ewan McGregor, and that, he is, to me, one of my most respected actors. Because there's not really been anything I've watched him in where I did not at least enjoy his performance.
I can agree with that.
And putting him in that role.
Is it safe to say then that you have not watched the trailer that they have released yet?
I have not.
Okay, I have not either. I've just heard about the film and I saw the release information through other means, and I knew that. But I haven't watched the previews yet either. I'm not sure if I want to or not.
I saw that you put it on the list, and I still didn't look it up.
Yeah.
Like I saw the name, and I was like, okay, I know what that is. I didn't even know they had cast Ewan McGregor.
Oh, okay.
Now that you've told,
Sorry
I learned that
for you.
It's okay. I've learned that now. I will probably watch what they've put out just to get an idea of the tone they're going for.
Sure.
If they're going to try and keep with Kubrick's tone, they better damn well do it right. If they're going to make it their own thing, make it your own thing and make it very clear that's what you're doing.
Just don't try to mix the two.
Yeah. Definitely don't try to go some Kubrick and some anything else. It's not going to work.
I think that's a difficult style. Even though some of his style, you can see similarities from film to film, but whether you like him a lot or you dislike him a lot, I find that I think it's difficult to nail down. Like if you look at Wes Anderson movies, you could tell they're Wes Anderson movies.
Yeah.
And he's a very stark example of trying to point something like that out. Whereas Kubrick, if you told me afterward that was a Kubrick movie, oh, okay, that makes sense. But as I'm watching it, I might not say, this really reminds me of 2001: A Space Odyssey or The Shining. Is this Kubrick?
Well,
just because, you know what I mean?
2001, I kind of separate a little bit from some of the others.
Why is that?
It just, I don't know, like, I feel like there's similarities in what he's done outside of that. And I feel like there's very few within that reach out to his other films.
Okay. So I guess the point I was trying to get around to, and I was being inartful about it, is I think it's difficult to try to intentionally display an imitation of Kubrick because there wasn't a lot about his style that seemed very consistent to me.
I can agree with that, but I can also say that, I mean, maybe even if not directly to just Kubrick, to the original film.
Okay, okay.
Because, yeah, I mean, if, you go more into Kubrick, you could, say, like, there's huge differences in what he's done with things like, Full Metal Jacket and The Shining are extremely different in the film style. But it's I'm trying to think of a good way to put it, but the best way I can think is like the dark, extremely dark undertones with a smile is what I always think of when I think of Kubrick.
Okay.
Is that he conveys these things in very non-traditional ways. So I feel like he tends to tread very lightly over things that should be taken with a much heavier tone.
Okay.
And then
I understand that.
I think that's part of like the style I think of when I think of Kubrick, is like at the same time as how disturbing the drill sergeant is in Full Metal Jacket and how like horrible the things he's doing are, he's also kind of comical. Does that make sense? Like what I'm like, it's.
I think so. Yeah. I wouldn't expect. I think like all these years later, I think it'd be a big gamble for a filmmaker to intentionally try to invoke Kubrick or try to replicate feelings from shots or moods from The Shining. So they'd probably want to stay away from that as much as possible. Because I think in a lot of circles, Kubrick is one of like, for film snobs, I think Kubrick is one of those like sacrosanct names that either like film snobs either like they don't allow people to have a real opinion about him. Either Kubrick is sacrosanct or they hate him. I'll finish this out. Or they dislike him just to be ironic because you're supposed to like him.
Right.
They don't just have an opinion of like, well, whether he was good at what he did or whether a particular movie was better than another, or it failed in one way or another.
It's the same truth of every director. Some of it was good and some of it wasn't.
Right. And I feel like because he's very unique in like he's the closest I can think, like maybe him and Burton, to being like mainstream art house filmmakers.
Yeah.
Right. And so there's this like special place that he holds where, like I said, either people love him or they dislike him, or they dislike him because everyone else likes him, but they don't really have an opinion. And it just, I don't know, it swirls around and no one's actually just honest and critical.
Fair enough. All the same, Dr. Sleep, if you like The Shining or you're interested in where the story goes after, that's what you want to check out.
Yeah.
Even though we kind of turned that into a Kubrick discussion, which I'm not surprised happened, but it did happen.
Yeah, but that'll be November the 8th. And no, I just said this, I'm sure these last three, I guarantee these last three, we can't possibly talk about that long. Moving on to November the 15th is a movie called The Lodge that I saw. I only stopped on it because it kind of sounds like a movie I've seen before, or several movies I've seen before. The premise is a soon-to-be mother is snowed in with her fiance's 2 children at a remote holiday village. Just as relations begin to thaw between the trio, some strange and frightening events take place. There really wasn't anything stand out about it that made me stop on this one, except that Alicia Silverstone is in this, along with Richard Armitage. Best quick example I can give for him is he was Thorin Oakenshield in Peter Jackson's Hobbit trilogy. And also in the cast is an actress named, I'm going to butcher her last name, is Riley Keough, Keough. I do not know how to pronounce her last name correctly.
I'm not even going to try.
Yeah. I kind of dig her. She was in Mad Max Fury Road. She was in a movie in 2017 called It Comes at Night with what's his name? It's escaping me. It's to my Joel Edgerton. That wasn't terrible in my opinion. She was in a film called Hold the Dark, which was another movie made by Jeremy Saulnier, the guy that I mentioned earlier, made Green Room and Blue Ruin. That was a Netflix original called Hold the Dark. She's in a movie that I've been wanting to see for a while called Under the Silver Lake, that kept getting like a pushed back theatrical release, and I don't know if it ever did, but now it's out on DVD, and I'm just waiting to get it from the library. It's supposed to be kind of this like weird, strange movie with Andrew Garfield, but it sounds really cool. If anyone saw Logan Lucky, she was in that. So that's like the casting about it. So some of those jumped out at me, which made me just kind of, like I said, just stop for a moment and say like, oh, I wonder if this could possibly be any good. It might suck. I have no idea. But I've seen way worse movies that sounded worse than this from the beginning, and I still gave an hour and a half of my life to them. So that's a thing. It's happening November 15th. Mike, do you have any thoughts on it?
Interesting to see Alicia Silverstone pop up again.
Mm-hmm.
Can't think of the last time I saw her in something new. Like, the last time I seen her in something that was like, oh, that's new. I can't even remember it. So, interesting to find out that she's still working. So
Yeah. So, like I said, this is one of those I'm not sure. I couldn't even tell you in advance how wide of a release I think this would get. So, it may be in a theater around your area. It may not be. But, again, if it's like a throwaway afternoon sometime, and you're like, let's go see that kind of seemingly crappy horror movie. Sure. November 15th, The Lodge. So, all right, I guess we'll move on. I think that was our shortest topic so far, which is good. This was one that struck out. I could not believe I saw this on a list somewhere. Did you see The Boy? I think it was in 2016 with Lauren Cohen.
Yeah. It was good.
I personally wouldn't say it was good. I think it was one that I expected to be way worse, and because it was like
That's
redeemable, fair. I was like, oh, okay, that was better than I thought it was going to be.
Fair.
It in no way, tell me if you disagree, I in no way felt it warranted a sequel by either the story or the quality or anything. Like, it did not create like
the whole
an
good
ongoing
part
mythology.
The whole good part of the movie was that you didn't realize that the boy was a real boy.
Spoilers.
Yeah, if you need a spoiler on The Boy at this point,
for a movie that I guarantee no one else is going to watch.
The truth of it is that was what made that movie turn from being something silly and ridiculous to, oh, I'm paying attention now.
I agree.
Because they had this interesting turn. It doesn't work twice. Yes. It's the same reason that Saw, to me, never warranted a sequel, is because they had this idea with Saw that, that huge twist at the end that made it so much better. And I guess there was enough people that thought Saw was great because you watched a guy saw off his own leg, and that's where we got all these sequels.
Yeah.
As opposed to, like the twist and the interesting puzzle to it and the interesting mystery to the story. They thought it was the gore and violence, and I guess that's what wound up going that route. And in this case, you can't, like, the boy, this time it's going to magically turn back into a doll that actually is killing people or something. I don't know.
Well, and that was the strange part is, again, we'll just assume no one is, if you haven't seen The Boy at this point, you're never going to, it's not a movie you're going to see. I know that. So the twist is that the doll doesn't turn into a boy. The doll is in the house, but the boy it belonged to is now grown up and has been living in the walls of the house for years, and then is revealed to actually exist. So like in
he's
a sequel,
also then actually killed, as far as I remember,
and that's what I recall as well. So, and it seems like this is a sequel. It's not a prequel, because the premise is after a family moves into the Hillshire mansion, which I think is the name of the house that the first one takes place in. Their young son soon makes friend with a real lifelike doll called Brahms. I guess in theory it could be a prequel. I don't know why you would want it, because you already you already know what the big twist is. You already know what the reveal is. Yeah. So the title of this is Brahms, Brahms. That's the name of the son that the doll is standing in for in the film. It's Brahms, the boy, too. I can't say now. And interestingly enough, like, I don't want to be shitty about this, but like Katie Holmes is starring in it. She's the biggest name in this, And I'm like, why? Like, are you in this bad of a place at the moment that you need to do Brahms, The Boy too? Like, why, Katie Holmes? That was why, as I'm going through the sources, I'm like, what? Okay, they're making a sequel and Katie Holmes is in it. That's sad.
Well, we know Tom's money's not running out, so
I suppose.
What? Like, take a chance, I guess.
Maybe. So yeah, that's, if anyone cares to check that out, that looks like it's going to be December 6th, which is strange because I think the first one was like an early February release from what I remember, maybe January of the year it came out, which I think was 2016. So now they're putting this in December. I have no idea why. But that's the sequel to The Boy, December 6th. We have come to the last. We have one more. This is, I think, unnecessary.
Yeah,
I mean, so many are. But so there's a segment on one of Kevin Smith's podcasts on Hollywood Babylon. The segment is called "No Thanks, Already Got One," and the idea is unnecessary sequels, unnecessary reboots and remakes constantly. I'd say this falls right under it. They're making another reimagining, remake, whatever, of Black Christmas. The original came out in 1974, and the only biggest name I could think to throw at anyone that they might recognize is Margot Kidder, the original Lois Lane from the Christopher Reeve Superman films. Margot Kidder was in that, and then they made one in 2006, I believe. Yeah, 2006, which, I mean, so they waited 32 years. Okay, I kind of get that. 32 years, they brought in Michelle Trachtenberg, Mary Elizabeth Winstead, Lacey Chabert.
Chabert.
If that's how you say it. Chabert, thank you. So, like, kind of putting that cast together at that point in time, I sort of understand. But, like, again, you never need it again. But they're doing it again. And they're making one more that comes out this December with, I'd have to, let me check, like, okay, so Carrie Elwes, I never know how to say that guy's last name.
Elways?
Oh, is it Elways?
Yeah, it's Carrie Elways.
All right, Carrie Elways and Imogen Poots is in this, but I think like she's at an, depending if they like change the story, I think like she's kind of at an age where it would not make sense for her to be one of the like sorority sisters in the story. So like I have no idea why they're making this movie.
Is it confirmed to actually be a remake, or is it just using the name?
At least the IMDb entry for it is a group of students are stalked by a stranger during their Christmas break. A remake of the 1974 horror film Black Christmas.
That's all I was asking. Like, just to be sure before I shit on it.
Shit away.
I mean, it's the same bullshit that we get from movies all the time these days. People can't think up their own creative story to tell, and they just retell something somebody else already told. I'm kind of over that idea for movies that don't need it. Movies that, you know, were really good to begin with, that don't need a technological update, don't remake. Something, you know what I mean, like, there was a long time there was a talk of rebooting, or not rebooting, but just remaking Jaws, to which I've always said, don't you fucking dare.
Right.
The first one's perfect. I don't give a shit what the shark looks like. Fuck off. With something like Black Christmas, when they went and remade it, it didn't need to be remade the first time.
Correct.
And just make up your own damn story. Think up something yourself. Be creative. Come up with something.
Well, and the idea behind it is generic enough that you could literally make nearly the exact same movie with a different title, and you'd really avoid the prospect of anybody caring enough to sue you for like infringement or anything.
Right. It's been done 100 times. And I think the thing is, they believe that their product that they want to put out is shitty enough, and that story is shitty enough that it needs the name recognition and the brand recognition of a shitty movie from the 70s and then the early 2000s to actually get people interested in the first place.
Yeah, the strange part is they're trying to, so this, I'm surprised, this is coming from Blumhouse, and they're selling it on the back of like the movie poster that they have as the IMDb image says from the producer of Get Out and Halloween, because Blumhouse did the reboot of Halloween. I mean, they're selling it on the backs of that, hoping that maybe people who don't know the older versions or who do will like give this a chance. But although it does come out on Friday the 13th of December, because that's Christmas time. I don't know. I'm trying.
You can try all you want. You know my reaction on this. Like, I'm sorry, but horror is so easy to be creative with because you don't have to bind yourself to reality at all. And they're not even trying to be creative. And that's the part that pisses me off. If you be creative and you fail, I'm okay with that. If you try to be creative and you succeed, great. I'm okay with that. If you're like, I have no desire to be creative, I'm just going to use what somebody else made and make it shittier, probably.
Yeah. Like, and I think that goes back to exactly how we opened the conversation, that if you excel, that's great, but when you flop, you fail hard.
Yeah, and I don't see any outcome of success here. And I think it goes back even further to something where you and I and Brian and Andy were discussing The Lion King in the recent remake before the last show, where we didn't discuss this on shows, so you're not missing anything from the last show, guys. But we discussed the same sort of thing where that was a shot-for-shot remake, and it just updated the technology with which we were viewing it. And for each one of us, it was just kind of... it fell really flat, whereas the newer Aladdin remake that came out, I believe, in May, that took its own liberties, did its own thing, created new wrinkles in the story, and really did something creative with it, as opposed to just remaking what we already have seen. And it was better. Don't get me wrong, I'm still not going to defend that as a huge creative success, because it's not. It's still using somebody else's property to make something not unique, but at least it did something different.
Yeah, I agree.
And with something like Black Christmas, nobody wanted this, nobody asked for it, we don't need it. I'd rather see 10 terribly made shitty horror movies than go watch this one that
seem originally conceived.
Yeah. Just 10, even if they're originally conceived and they turn out to be shitty, I'd rather watch them than something that's already been done.
Yeah. So, I mean, maybe as our discussion for tonight closes out, our ending sentiment is we would rather watch your shitty stuff that's original rather than remaking stuff that doesn't need to be constantly.
I feel like we're going to be having this conversation about, like, another Krampus movie in 2 years. Like, it just...
Hey, I didn't mind that Krampus movie.
Which one? There was like 3 that released that year.
That is true. The Toni Collette, Adam Scott one.
Yeah, it was okay. But...
if it never happens again, I'm good with that too.
Yeah.
Same.
It's just... I feel like they have no ideas for Christmas horror movies. Because it's fucking Christmas.
Yeah, and I didn't realize this until I was going through things today that, for instance, I was looking at 3 from Hell, and I find Bill Moseley's page, and I see, Bill Moseley was in a movie called Silent Night, Deadly Night 3. I knew there was a first one, didn't know there was at least 3 in that series. So, I think, you can only come up with unique seeming horror premises around the Christmas holiday to a certain degree. It's just it's a limited universe to pull from.
I mean, I'm pretty sure Gary Busey voiced Ginger Dead Man in
yes, he did.
A solid 3 or 4, didn't he?
I know definitely the first one. He appeared live action in part of it. And
he did it for the second.
Yeah, and then voiced the rest of the first, and then might have been into the second or third as well.
Yeah, so...
well,
there you go. Give me Gary Busey voicing a fucking talking gingerbread man, and I am there. But give me Black Christmas again, I'm out.
Oh boy, that's Bradley's closing statement, Your Honor.
I stand by it.
Well, yeah, I guess that's where we'll end this discussion of upcoming scary movies for the rest of the year, the Halloween season, the scary movie season. We don't know how you guys feel about just the two of us existing in a Labicless world. Let us know, I suppose. I don't have all the info, but Brian tried to tell me what to mention here. Look on Facebook, Twitter, and the Bri Guy to Super Friends at Gmail account that he never checks. We're around. Google Bri Guy to Super Friends. You'll find us on things. Leave comments and ratings. I
feel like he's going to hear
knows.
This, edit it, and put in his own ending anyways.
I asked him if he wanted to handle it. He told me to do it. This is what he gets.
Okay. Well, he handed the reins to you.
He shouldn't have outsourced. That's his fault. But I don't know about you. I had fun doing this. This was cool getting to talk just like one-on-one for a change, and also about stuff that we don't typically get to deep dive on at all during the show.
It's rare that we get into stuff horror-related. I think we did a Walking Dead one a while back with Romano, but
yeah, it's been a minute, as the kids say.
We missed out on all the Game of Thrones stuff because Brian didn't watch that. And I'd still go back and record podcasts about each season. If you guys are interested in hearing us talk about them retroactively all this time, please let us know.
You can leave a comment on any of those social media outlets or by sending emails to contact info that I can't really remember right now. But yeah, we're going to say thank you. We hope you enjoyed the change of pace as well. And for myself and Mike, and I guess on behalf of Brian, thanks, and we will talk to you next time.